Every mother carries the weight of expectation, but no one prepares you for the sacrifices of raising a son like David. I sit often in the early morning hours, reflecting on those years, each memory unfolding like pages in a worn photo album. From the moment I held him, I realized my life was entwined with his, every decision rooted in nurturing the dreams I had for him. I remember the day he took his first steps, that rainy afternoon echoing with laughter. I had just returned from a long shift at the diner, weary yet buoyed by anticipation. The sight of him standing near the couch, wobbly but determined, sent a jolt of joy through me. "Mommy, look!" he squealed, and when he fell into my embrace, I felt a surge of pride and responsibility. In that moment, I vowed to dedicate my life to supporting him. The years rolled by, marked by the scent of baked spaghetti wafting through the house. I would prepare his favorite meals, creating small rituals that became my love language. Each bite was seasoned with the sacrifices I made, long hours spent at work, juggling shifts to provide for us. I reveled in our moments together. The warmth of our shared laughter over school stories and birthday celebrations, where I decorated with balloons and homemade cakes. Those memories filled my heart with purpose. But as David approached adolescence, I began to feel the first stirrings of distance. The easy laughter we once shared started to fizzle, replaced by awkward silences. He was blossoming into a thoughtful teenager, and I felt on the periphery of his life. It began as a hollow ache, his victories echoing proudly on the walls, yet accompanied by an unsettling sense of separation. Late at night, I would find myself scrolling through photographs, each snapshot of joy contrasting sharply with the loneliness creeping in. I would see the flickers of the past, the warmth of hugging him tight, the innocence painted across his face, but as he dove into his own world, I felt the presence of an unspoken wall slowly creeping its way between us. Each award he received during those turbulent years felt heavy in my heart, each accomplishment driving home the reality that he was stepping further into adulthood, and I was losing my role as the anchor of his life. Yet, amid this swirl of emotions, one truth remained. My devotion to David was unwavering. I worked tirelessly out of love, forging the path I thought would keep him safe. But now, I couldn't help but wonder if my fierce encouragement had unintentionally distanced us. In nurturing his growth, had I failed to connect deeply enough to retain the bond that had once felt so effortless? Despite the rising tides of uncertainty, I held on to hope. I reminded myself of the strength woven into our journey together, that the love I poured into his life would someday bridge the gaps that now seemed to grow. Through the ache, I believed that what we shared could withstand the storms ahead, that our connection would somehow endure. When Vanessa entered our lives, it felt like a warm breeze, promising yet foreshadowing upheaval. I can still picture the day David brought her home. His excitement radiated, hope shining brightly in his eyes. I wanted to embrace this new chapter, to open my arms to the woman who had captured my son's heart. At first, everything flowed smoothly. Vanessa spoke with charm and confidence, regaling us with tales from college, her travels and goals. The energy was infectious, and I felt drawn into her vibrant narrative, forgetting the unease that had begun lurking in my chest. As we shared dinners filled with laughter and home-cooked meals, the mask of harmony started to slip, revealing cracks beneath. Vanessa's comments, subtle yet biting, began to pierce our interactions. One evening, while I served my homemade chili, she chirped, "This is nice, but my mom's version is way better. She uses organic spices." The laughter rang out, yet it felt hollow. I forced a smile, each chuckle from the family tightening the knot of humiliation in my throat. This was only the beginning. During another dinner, I proudly showcased my carefully crafted decorations, a collection of memories from birthdays long past and Christmases filled with joy. Vanessa offered her critique, smiling sweetly as she said, "You should really consider updating to a more contemporary style, Margaret. What do you think, David?" My heart sank as I realized he nodded along with her, the affirmation echoing in my mind, deepening my sense of isolation. As the weeks turned into months, Vanessa's jabs became more frequent, dripping with condescension disguised as charm. "I hope you don't feel burdened, but I thought I'd share some of my cooking tips," she'd comment, her words coated in a sickly sweet veneer that left a bitter aftertaste. I felt a growing pressure within the walls of our home, encapsulated by the warmth that was increasingly overshadowed by her sharp tongue. The family gatherings morphed into minefields, and my once cherished meals turned into the backdrop for Vanessa's critiques. "Oh, is there bacon in this? I really shouldn't." The shame wrapped around me like an unwelcome blanket, stifling my voice. Each passing dinner, I sensed David drifting further into Vanessa's orbit, the bond we shared fraying right in front of my eyes. During school meetings, Vanessa would seize the opportunity to assert her control, presenting herself as the expert. "Oh, David can definitely improve in that subject. Don't you think so?" she'd ask, a hint of authority woven into her tone, inviting everyone to nod in agreement. I felt like I was fading away, my contributions brushed aside, my role reduced to that of an invisible spectator in my own family. Each treasured moment from our past, from whispered secrets over the dinner table to laughter on family outings, felt more distant. The photographs lined on the walls became reminders of what we once were, standing stark against the disarray building in our home. I fought to hold on to the sweet memories, even as a new narrative unfolded, one in which I had to confront the shift in dynamics. The realization began to dawn on me. Vanessa was not just a girlfriend, she was weaving herself into the very fabric of our family narrative. The love and sacrifices I had invested in David felt threatened, and the connection that had once defined us was at risk of being rewritten. The moments I spent in the kitchen, hiding from both Vanessa's barbed remarks and David's distracted loyalty, provided a bitter sort of solace. I channeled my emotions into my cooking, stirring pots filled with love while feeling the hollowness of isolation creep ever closer. I searched for answers, grappling with the internal conflict that was threatening to consume me. As I navigated the tense atmosphere during family gatherings, the pressure mounted. I could almost feel the walls closing in as Vanessa effortlessly commanded the attention of everyone around her. Had I spent years nurturing a home only for someone else to come and snatch it away? With every slight, the question resonated painfully within me. The warmth of family conversations felt tainted by Vanessa's critiques, and my heart ached against the intrusion. Yet I knew I couldn't remain voiceless forever. I needed to reclaim my place, safeguard the connection I had fought so hard to build with David. There was a throbbing urgency deep in my chest, a call to action whispering through the quiet corners of my mind. I couldn't ignore the shifts in our family dynamic. The rising tide of my emotions indicated a battle on the horizon, one that would require strength, resolve, and perhaps confrontation. The love I had poured into David's life was worth fighting for, and deep down, I understood that my journey was only just beginning. The sun set low in the sky one October evening, casting long shadows through the kitchen window as I stood by the sink, washing dishes after another strained family dinner. I had just put David and Vanessa's plates away, the remnants of my homemade lasagna still clinging stubbornly to their edges. My heart felt heavy, swirling with emotions of anger and disappointment. Each plate I scrubbed seemed to echo Vanessa's dismissive comments, reminding me how often I felt like an outsider in my own home. That night, as darkness enveloped the world outside, I took a deep breath and leaned against the counter, my mind racing. It was time to reclaim my voice. I knew I had to confront the situation with more than just silent suffering. I needed a plan, a way to assert my place in David's life without losing my dignity. What if I could turn the tide? What if I could show both David and Vanessa that I was still an intricate part of our family narrative? A surge of determination coursed through me. I imagined a scene where I could stand firm, where I might voice my feelings and assert my boundaries without being met with dismissal or ridicule. I took a step back to think through my strategies. The first step would be to reestablish my relationship with David. I wanted to remind him of our bond, the stories we shared, the warmth of our memories, the laughter that echoed in our home before Vanessa entered the picture. I resolved to create opportunities for us to reconnect without Vanessa's influence looming in the background. I'd start by inviting him to help me in the kitchen, where the familiar sense of cinnamon and vanilla could paint over the lingering tension. Cooking together had always been our cherished moments, a ritual steeped in laughter and camaraderie. Those interactions had woven a tapestry of shared experiences that Vanessa hadn't yet infiltrated. I'd also need to confront Vanessa directly. My heart raced at the thought, but I understood it was essential. I couldn't let her continued jabs fly without consequence. The next family dinner could provide an occasion for me to calmly yet firmly address her remarks. I pictured the scene in my mind, my hands steady, my voice measured, as I expressed how her words affected me. "Your critiques are unwelcome at my table," I rehearsed silently. The words felt powerful as they rolled through my thoughts. I knew this confrontation was necessary, but I also recognized that I had to choose the right moment, crafting the timing carefully, like one prepares a fine meal. For now, I focused on reconnecting with David. Over the next few days, I curated a series of small rituals to spark our old connection. I planned a cozy Sunday brunch with pancakes drizzled in maple syrup, fresh berries on the side, and warm coffee brewing in the pot. I wouldn't mention Vanessa initially. I wanted this time to be full of laughter, reminiscent of Saturday mornings when he was a child. Just me and my boy. As I prepared the meal, I felt a flicker of hope ignite inside me. I could almost picture David settling at the table, rolling up his sleeves, ready to dig into our breakfast feast. I would gently steer the conversation toward old memories, subtly weaving in stories that remind him of who we were, a mother and son who shared dreams and confidences. That specialty brunch was the first step, but I also needed to mentally prepare myself for what was to come. The idea of confronting Vanessa petrified me, but remaining silent felt like a slow-acting poison I could no longer tolerate. The notion of being a passive observer while she undermined everything I had built for David felt unacceptable. Throughout the days leading to that fateful dinner, I devoted moments to acknowledging my emotions, both the hurt and the resolve. I spent evenings journaling in a worn-out notebook, pouring out my feelings regarding Vanessa's constant taunts and David's enabling silence. I sought clarity and strength in my entries, crafting passages about the woman I was before the thorns of criticism began to pierce me. Visualizing this reclamation of my identity became part of my plan. I would not only speak my truths, I would embody them. The mantra began whispering in my heart, "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." With each repetition, I fortified my resolve, reminding myself that my spirit was indomitable, that the bond I cherished with David could be rekindled. Rituals of self-compassion became interlaced with my plans. I rediscovered books piled on my nightstand, those long-neglected tales offering wisdom and inspiration. Reading became a solace, each page nurturing my spirit as I found courage in the words crafted by powerful women who had journeyed through struggles similar to mine. As this anticipation built steadily leading up to the next family dinner, I felt a shift within me. I was awakening, reclaiming my roots. The time for stealthy, silent endurance was drawing to a close. Instead, I would approach the communal table firmly rooted in the values I had imparted to my son. All I needed was a moment to confront Vanessa and reclaim my space. This culminated in a rallying cry echoing in my heart, a reminder that the past still held power even amid the chaos of the present. I waited for the right moment to emerge. Patience held me poised while waiting for the opportune time to set my plan into motion. The days leading up to that pivotal family dinner were filled with a strange urgency. The air hummed with tension, both in my heart and within our household. I was determined to confront Vanessa, but I knew I couldn't march into that kitchen without first gathering evidence of her undermining tactics. The truth had to be undeniable. I needed to prepare for the confrontation without succumbing to the emotional pitfalls I'd navigated in the past. In subtle ways, I began to observe. Each family gathering became an opportunity for clarity, each moment an examination of Vanessa's words and actions. I took particular note of the way she interacted with David and the family, how she commanded the room with sly comments, almost transforming every conversation into a battleground. I started to notice her patterns, the way her laughter would drown out others, how her gaze flickered dismissively when I attempted to engage. At the next dinner, I served my signature meatloaf, a recipe passed down through generations that David had always cherished. As I placed the dish on the table, I could almost feel Vanessa gearing up for her attack. When the first slice was served, she offered up that all-too-familiar critique. "Oh, did you forget the garlic this time, Margaret? It could use a little more flavor." Laughter followed her statement, echoing around the table. I clenched my fists under the table, breathing in deeply, forcing calmness into the storm brewing within me. But I couldn't let it slide. Not this time. Gripping the edges of the table, I reminded myself of my strength. Instead of defending the flavor of my dish, I focused on observing the reactions around me. David chuckled at Vanessa's remark, a delayed reaction that sent a chill through my spine. I could see the alignment of their energies. She drew him in effortlessly, and I was slowly being alienated in the heart of my own home. Days passed, and I grew increasingly aware of how seamlessly she manipulated our surroundings. During our morning coffee routines, I overheard her making snide remarks about my cooking preferences. "I mean, who wouldn't want to eat healthy, right?" She'd smirk, her eyes darting toward David. It felt like being trapped in an unending cycle, a cycle I finally decided to break. I recognized that I couldn't rely solely on the dinner environment. I needed further insight. I began seeking out conversations that could provide me with deeper knowledge about Vanessa, talking to those who had known her before she entwined herself into our family dynamics. I found a confidant in Elaine, my neighbor, who had once hosted a number of gatherings with Vanessa. Over tea, I opened up like an overstuffed wine bottle, sharing my feelings of exclusion while searching for insights. Elaine sighed, serving her cocoa with genuine warmth. She's charming, but there's an edge to her, a sharpness that can cut if you're not careful. I've witnessed her dismissing others' contributions at gatherings before. My heart raced at her words. I was not alone in recognizing Vanessa's toxicity. That conversation became a cornerstone of my investigation. Elaine's astute observations confirmed that Vanessa's disarming sweetness often masked a more sinister, manipulative side. I had been right to suspect that her charming facade could easily turn into a weapon against me. That day, I took detailed notes after our talk, mentally arming myself with a compelling narrative, one that demonstrated Vanessa's behavior across different contexts. Armed with my growing knowledge, I started journaling potential dialogues and strategies for the impending confrontation. Writing provided me clarity and focus, my pen dancing across the pages. I carefully structured my thoughts, planning for the possibility of Vanessa's defenses. I knew she'd twist my words, so I decided to be precise, keeping my statements grounded in specific examples. I mapped out potential responses, notes about the recent incidents, and realistic approaches. What you said last week about my cooking, how it isn't up to par, that undermined not just me, but my relationship with David, I would assert. I needed to confront her while ensuring my assertion was sharp, backed by undeniable evidence. I would not let her narrative twist the truth. Finally, the night of the family dinner arrived. I had prepared thoroughly, strategically selected flavors for the meal, and dressed in my favorite blouse, one that I always wore when I needed an extra boost of confidence. I realized how my inner resilience had been building. The act of reclaiming myself had offered real transformation. As I set the dining table, placing forks and knives with meticulous attention, I could feel the familiar rhythm rise inside me. Thoughts of David's laughter, our adventures together, and the mother-son bond that had nurtured him since birth flowed through my mind. I envisioned us laughing over dinner without Vanessa's interruptions or barbs. When David and Vanessa arrived, the atmosphere shifted. I spotted the look Vanessa exchanged with my son, a knowing glance that set me on edge. Inviting them to sit, I felt the weight of the approaching confrontation settle heavily on my shoulders a moment before the first course was served. As we ate, little by little, I navigated into conversation, taking the time to remind David of cozy past moments. I broached light topics, stories from his childhood that made him laugh, memories of family vacations that warmed my heart. I was drawing him back into our shared narrative, rooting ourselves in the safely salvaged soil of our familial love, wanting him to feel the warmth that had once surrounded our seasons of joy. However, Vanessa couldn't resist interjecting, lobbing sarcastic comments like grenades. Those stories are cute, but I don't think childhood memories and staying stuck in the past will help him grow. Raising an eyebrow, she added, but I guess for some, nostalgia serves as an escape from reality. Each word she uttered stabbed against the foundation I was trying to fortify. Instead of crumbling inwards, I prepared to acknowledge her games. I had to focus on my truths, to dismantle her control over our interactions. Every observation during my investigation would prepare me for this moment, and as I steadied my breath, my heart pounded in time with the anticipation of what I needed to say. That moment was coming. The time to shift our entire family landscape was upon me. With my resolved mantra echoing in my mind, the gears began to shift within me. The plan was set, confrontation awaited. As dinner progressed, I felt the tension thickening around the table like an invisible fog. David, absorbed in his meal, glanced between Vanessa and me, perhaps sensing the weight of the moment. I focused on his laughter, the sounds triggering memories like flickering lights in a dark room. A desire surged within me. I had to help him remember who I was, who we had been together. Each bite I took felt amplified as I prepared to unleash not just my words, but the emotions that had been bottled up over the months. "Do you remember the time we got lost on that hike up Pine Ridge?" I asked David, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling beneath the surface. His eyes lit up at the memory. I could see him visualizing our adventure, the exhilaration, the shared exhilaration, the simple joy of being together outside of the distractions of daily life. But before he could respond, Vanessa cut in, her tone almost too sweet. "Oh, that was the time you told me you couldn't navigate out of a paper bag, right? I mean, it's adorable, but maybe he should stick to the gym instead of wilderness expeditions." She tilted her head, feigning innocence as she donned her masked charm. Anger simmered just below my skin. It was clear what she was doing, revising our shared history, attempting to isolate David in the process. Every jibe she made was a calculated move meant to undermine my position, but I wouldn't give in. The new plan I meticulously designed was fast approaching its execution phase. "Vanessa, I appreciate your enthusiasm for growth and health," I began, my voice gaining strength. "But those memories are pieces of what shaped him into the remarkable man he is today. This family rich with shared experiences isn't simply fodder for jokes, it's our foundation." She blinked, momentarily taken aback. For a heartbeat, I felt the shift in atmosphere, the tension fracturing under the weight of my words. David looked at me, his brow furrowed, as if he were beginning to grasp the implications of our conversation. I pressed on. "We all have different ways of showing love, and for me, it's about cherishing the moments we've built together. They're not just stuck in the past, they're part of us, all of us." My heart raced as I reached out, desperate to connect with David's gaze. Vanessa's smile wavered, but quickly reformed. "Of course, but I believe moving forward is just as important. Why dwell on memories when we can create new ones?" Her voice dripped with faux concern, and I sensed the game was shifting. She was trying to corner me back into submission. I wasn't done. "It's not about dwelling, it's about honoring what has shaped us. You can't build a new house on rubble without recognizing the groundwork." My voice gained momentum as the words flowed, a steady rhythm underscoring the need for this confrontation. "I'm here to support David as he explores new adventures, but I must also remind him, and myself, where we've come from." With that, I let silence settle over the table. I studied David, searching for any hint of understanding. His eyes darted between us, the tension palpable as he seemed to weigh our words. This was the turning point. I felt it in my bones. Spurred on by my determination, I continued feeling empowered. "David, I've worked hard to provide a loving foundation for you. I want you to know that this isn't just some past to forget. It forms the very essence of who you are." Vanessa fiddled with her fork, annoyance leaking through her perfect smile. "But wouldn't it be more productive to focus on the present? You know, some things are meant to be left behind." "Some things," I countered, my gaze fixed firmly on David, "are valuable treasures that deserve remembrance. They hold power. In understanding them, we understand ourselves." My voice dropped, a tenderness imbued in my words. "I believe that love is both forward-living and reflective. It's not mutually exclusive." The atmosphere in the room shifted again. I could see David reflecting on what I said. He was evolving into the man I raised, and I could feel our bond charging back to life. Yet I had to ensure Vanessa's narrative didn't drown his realization. Those moments we shared, like the countless hikes and lazy Sundays, are not simply childhood memories. They're the roots that nourished your growth. When I see you succeed, David, I remember the little boy who climbed trees with boundless ambition, who laughed beyond the simple joys. That boy is still a part of you. My heart swelled, conviction flooding my voice. Vanessa's grip on her fork tightened. I sensed her discomfort, the tightness in her eyes. She had likely prepared an arsenal of tactics to dismiss my claims, but I had firmly planted my flag. This would be my ground, and I would not budge without a fight. Perhaps, David finally spoke up, his voice tentative but strong. Maybe there is value in both perspectives. The words dripped with cautious diplomacy, yet I felt the shift. He was considering my point of view, negotiating the tug-of-war between his mother and his girlfriend. Then Vanessa spoke, her tone tinged with irritation. But you can't let nostalgia define your direction. You have to move on. The pressure in the air felt palpable. Her defensiveness crackled like static. Why does moving on have to mean abandoning our roots? I pressed, my heart pounding. Why can't it be about growing through the beauty of our past? You've both become important figures in my life, but it's essential to see what has come before in order to know where we can go. As I locked eyes with David, I saw a hint of agreement growing. You're right, Mom, he said slowly. Those moments did shape me. I wouldn't be who I am without them. The atmosphere shifted again, but this time the undercurrent felt different. As David leaned in, I could see the light of understanding flickering in his eyes. My heart swelled with hope that perhaps he was beginning to grasp the true essence of family. With a fleeting glance, I caught Vanessa's expression flaring into anger, her facade cracking. This time, the confidence I felt didn't waver. She was no longer just a manipulator, but an undeniable threat to our family and connection. The tables had turned in ways I never anticipated. I was ready to face the reality of her impact. This moment, this confrontation, was the pivot upon which our family conflict balanced. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was unwaveringly committed to reclaiming my voice and defining the contours of my family narrative. The seed of confrontation had taken root. The battle was only just beginning, yet I felt emboldened by the realization of my strength. My history woven together with the bonds of love was worth fighting for. The tension at the dinner table hung heavy as David's acknowledgement of my words resonated in the cool air. I could feel the momentum building, like a storm ready to break. I had taken the first step by naming the dynamic that had plagued our family. Now came the crucial phase of executing my plan. I had to press forward for the sake of our family's love, even if it meant stepping into turbulent waters. David's eyes flickered back to Vanessa, who was visibly agitated. It was time for me to speak plainly and plainly define the boundaries separating us. The atmosphere crackled, and as I cleared my throat, the weight of the moment solidified the ground I stood on. David, I said, my voice firm yet calm, we need to address what just happened. I believe we can all share our perspectives without devaluing one another. But it has to be honest. Vanessa, your comments have undermined the memories that are crucial to our family. They matter to me, and they should matter to you. The words hung in silence for a brief moment. I locked my gaze with Vanessa, willing her to comprehend the depth of what I was saying, the danger of reducing the stories that built our connection down to childish reminiscences or escapes. It's not about being nostalgic for the sake of it, I continued, growing more resolute. It's about cherishing what has created this family, a family that includes you now. Vanessa's jaw tightened as she struggled to remain composed. But that sounds so limiting. If you get too cozy in old memories, how can we innovate? How will we evolve? The attempt at deflection was expected, but it didn't intimidate me. Innovation doesn't have to come at the expense of our past. You're trying to create distance, but vulnerability is where we find actual growth. I allowed the weight of my words to settle, knowing that honesty could be uncomfortable yet necessary. I could see David wrestling with the implications of our exchange. I turned directly to him, the mother-son connection firmly rooted in my heart. I want you to know we can build a future that honors the past. I need you to understand that even as you grow, there must be space for the love that has nurtured you from the beginning." He appeared to be processing my words, the light in his eyes reflecting a dawning comprehension. I felt a flicker of hope, but there was still one piece that needed addressing. I needed to define boundaries. Vanessa's sabotage couldn't go unchecked any longer. "Vanessa, I've brought you into this love-filled space," I said, my voice steady as I shifted my attention back to her. "But we need to agree on what respect looks like. When you belittle our shared experiences, it's not a new direction. It is dismissal. And that has been deeply hurtful." Her incredulous expression told me she felt attacked, but it was necessary for her to confront the consequences of her actions. "You can't expect me to keep quiet," she retorted defensively, her tone elevated. "I thought anything would be on the table for discussion in this family." "That's true," I countered, "but it's not okay to belittle the contributions that have shaped us into who we are." A silence fell over the table, thick and charged, as the impact of my words permeated the air. David's brow creased in contemplation. I could see him wrestling with two parts of himself, the loyalty to Vanessa versus the undeniable connection to his past. "Mom, I can understand both perspectives," he said carefully, attempting to navigate the choppy waters of our conversation. "But it feels like we keep circling the same argument. We should find common ground." His attempts to diffuse the tension made my heart swell, momentarily assuaging my worries about the impending confrontation. For David, standing in the middle was a difficult balancing act, yet I seized the opportunity to embrace it. "That's exactly why we need to communicate better," I suggested, my voice warm with encouragement. "This dialogue can work, but it requires us to listen and respect one another. Let's lay down our expectations and acknowledge where we've come from together." "Fine," Vanessa said, her defensiveness subdued, yet the edge remained in her tone. "But I find it frustrating that you hold on to those memories so tightly. Are you prepared to really work together moving forward?" "There's nothing wrong with holding memories close," I replied, grounding myself. "We aim to create new stories without losing the essence of our shared foundation. That's the ideal way to move forward as a family." David shifted, clearly caught between loyalty and a new understanding of what our family dynamic could be. I urged him to join this conversation, advocating for a common understanding. "The backstories are vital to us, yet they must complement our new experiences, right?" His face softened as he turned back toward Vanessa. "If we can both agree to respect the past, then we can figure out how to create new memories without tearing anyone down." Vanessa remained silent, her forced mask slipping slightly, revealing traces of vulnerability. She hesitated before she spoke again, her voice softer. "I guess there might be room for that. Compromise and understanding could help." And just like that, a small crack formed in the unyielding wall I had felt loom over us for so long. It was a turning point, subtle yet profound. As dinner progressed, I saw the conversation begin to evolve. David shared his own stories about us, weaving our memories into the fabric of dialogue. It was healing. The warmth fanned the flames of our connection. Yet I remained vigilant, observing the subtle shifts that would come. I needed to ensure that this was not merely superficial noise, but the birth of genuine understanding. Family bonds could only strengthen through transparency and honesty, a landscape where I could plant my roots once more. By dessert, I sensed a lighter atmosphere, punctuated by laughter. As we savored each slice of carrot cake, I allowed the remnants of tension to evaporate into the scented breeze. But I understood we were still far from done. This was about laying the groundwork for a new chapter, one that needed nurturing, trust, and continued dedication to dialogue. As the evening winds down, I know the confrontation isn't over, but the seeds I planted today began to take root. I had turned the tides of our family narrative. My voice, once muted, now rang with clarity. In the story I would continue to tell, there remained a space for honesty, love, and resilience. The battle wasn't concluded, but the fight for our family was worth every breath. We can always find common ground, I reminded myself. As the mantra echoed in my heart, I knew I had begun to shape the future. As the echoes of laughter faded, the remnants of our dessert lingered, a sweet victory over the tension that had clung to the evening. But I sensed we were still walking a precipice, on the verge of something monumental, the energy in the room charged with unspoken truths. I appreciate the movie choice, I started, attempting to bridge the comfort we had built. But sometimes the stories we desire can feel far removed from reality. My eyes settled on Vanessa, aware that her defenses were already up. She responded, not missing a beat. Isn't that the point? Fiction shows how families should act, not how they often do. Her tone was edged, fraught with an undercurrent that made my pulse quicken. That's when a seemingly innocent dialogue turned combative. What about the reality we're now creating together? I probed, wishing to navigate the complexities we each held. It's not solely about the past, Vanessa huffed, and tension crackled in the room. You mean to say we can just ignore all the messy parts? No, but we can acknowledge them as part of our story. I steadied my voice, aware of the weight these revelations had on all of us. Growth often comes from confronting those very messes, not dismissing them altogether. David leaned in, sensing the riptide of emotions. Mom's right. We need to honor the good and the bad. That's how we find our way to a better future. Vanessa's eyes narrowed as she steadied herself. So, you think we'll just brush past all the pain? That feels naive. A knot formed in my throat. No, it's about embracing our reality. We can meet those pains rather than running from them. We can weave them into our new narrative. The words felt bold, powerful. I could see a flicker in David's eyes. He was wrestling with loyalties yet again. It's never too late to reshape our narrative, I pressed, reminding us all that transformation was possible through honesty and intention. As emotions swirled, the room seemed to hold its breath. A charged silence fell. It felt monumental, revealing hidden cracks in our facade. Families are complicated. It's okay that we have different perspectives, I continued softly. But those must coexist for us to grow, David finally interjected, his voice steady. What if we find a way to coexist, acknowledge both the hurt and the happiness? His words seemed to hang in the air, a lifeline thrown out amidst the chaos. Vanessa blinked, the mask of confidence faltering. It's not that simple. The past isn't just dust to brush away, nor is it a prison. I leaned forward, embracing my motherly instinct to connect. It forms the base of the future we want to build. Our past doesn't define us, it can empower us. The film flickered in the background, oblivious to the turning tide in this room. The laughter we shared felt inadequate against the weight of the moment we were exchanging. The real story was surfacing, painfully raw yet liberating. Finally, I took a deep breath, feeling bold. I see you, both of you. I want nothing more than to cultivate this family's roots, regardless of how tangled they may appear. Let's confront our truths together. An opportunity lingered in the air, and Vanessa's hardened expression softened just a bit. So, you really think we can move forward? I know we can, I declared, anchoring myself to resolve. David nodded, an ember of hope igniting within him. Suddenly, amid all that could have torn us apart, there was possibility. A connection sparked between all three of us, a fragile truce woven through vulnerability and understanding, waiting for us to nurture it carefully. The stakes were high. I recognized the courage it would take from all three of us to sustain this shift, but in that moment, I felt empowered. A new chapter was emerging. Together, we could embrace our realities while forging a path forward. The tension began to dissolve, replaced by a flicker of hope, something worth fighting for. As I exchanged glances with David, I saw that perhaps the physical scene could transform, just as our family narrative could. So I sat in the dim light, reaffirming my mantra quietly, letting it marinate. We can always find common ground. In that climactic moment, I surrendered to the unfolding future, ready to nourish the family that was and the family that would be.